Hello? Okay, hi, my name is Max Kane, and I am a student on the Go Create Academy and Learning Waves storytelling course. For my presentation today, I have prepared two pieces, both relating in varying ways to the Irish culture and identity. It's a question that I've been asking myself for quite some time. So, what are the signifiers that make someone Irish? Is it blood? For example, in North America, the Irish American and Irish Canadian community define themselves by blood, where their ancestors came from, leading to what I think is a culture that feels like a long game of Chinese whispers. Or alternatively, is it in the way that we talk? Do we ham up or tone down our accent depending on who we talk to, be they English, American, or also even Irish? Or is it in the way that we act, going to pubs and having the crack? So what I did is I conducted some interviews to try and find the answer to my question. So first of all, here is my video presentation on Irishness. Growing up, I was fascinated by Oscar Wilde's play The Importance of Being Earnest, in part due to the duality of the main character. He leads a dual life, being named Ernest in town and Jack in the country. He was blending his background to suit wherever he was situated. And in some ways, the Irish identity is the opposite to that, with many people identifying with the culture on an international scale, for better or for worse. Here in Wicklow, I interviewed Jason Bustamante, an ethnically Filipino man living in Ireland, and Jeffrey Kane, an Irishman that once lived in London, to try and figure it out. To start, does Jason consider himself Irish or Filipino?
Well, in my opinion, when I came here, I came here very young. So, when growing up, I technically grew up with Irish people. I'm integrated now. In the fact that when you're counting myself as a citizen of Ireland, I'm pretty much like Irish, like from the start, like when I came here. In relation to the Irish people, yeah, it's a good experience actually. So like it's a bit different from where I come from, but yeah, but there's some similarities as well in relation to like the good crack and stuff, with the mates and all that, with friends. So like that's the thing though. And then yeah, I mean that's what I think at the moment. So.
And as for Jeffrey in London, what was the perspective of English people towards the Irish?
I think at the time, obviously, you know, there would have been, I suppose troubles in the north and stuff like this, and there was definitely maybe a degree of mistrust and stuff like that, and I remember I was working in a place in, where was it, King's Cross, and I would have been the only Irish person working there. And I remember I think there'd been an IRA bomb in London the, on one day, and I went into work the next day. And I remember I walked in, and there was a guy at the next desk who I was talking to, fine, grand, nice guy. I kind of, oh, morning, how you doing? No answer. And nobody spoke to me for the first half of the day at all. So it was just kind of that kind of thing, that, I suppose the Irish, it was kind of like, oh, the Irish, responsible for everybody's tarred with the one brush, So probably very similar to how maybe, Muslim people feel in the UK now, that everybody is tarred with the one brush. So there was a bit of that. That would have been the most part of it. So I wouldn't use the word repression. I'd say there was just kind of a mistrust, and sometimes just outright, I suppose, racism or horrible things said to you. So yeah, there would have been that. Yeah. Oh well, I remember, I remember driving to Bristol with somebody else and got a bit lost, and was looking for directions because obviously there was no Google Maps. Like nobody really had sat navs at that stage. And stopped and asked someone for directions, and they kind of looked in, and they were kind of, they gave directions, and then kind of went, are you from Ireland? And someone said, yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, you should bloody well go back there. And off they went. So it's just that kind of stuff, yeah, just, just kind of ignored it, like just kind of mildly annoying, but it was just stupid. Yeah.
And thinking about it on an even more international scale, what makes the Irish so easily identifiable abroad? And as such, how would Jason be identified in the Philippines?
That's the catch on, really. They can tell a foreigner when you're there, like so, like not to say that like I'm foreign because I'm from there, but I feel like I am because of the way I talk and the way I move and the way I mingle with other Filipinos back at home, especially family. So they can tell that like I did not grow there. That's it. But I try my best to speak in like my native Filipino language, But for that, the accent, they can catch it from the accent. So besides the accent, like just the way you move, like because like us, we're always like here in Ireland, like mostly Irish, we're always talking about drinks, right, and stuff like that. And most of the time when I'm home, I'm always thinking about where's the nearest pub and stuff like that. So they can tell like that you're not from there if you talk about the pubs, like that's literally it. Like that's the only thing they can like think about. So yeah.
And thinking further about voice, do Irish people code switch? Do they alter their voice depending on who they talk to? And why? And just to let you know, my dad lies in the next segment because he changes his accent so much depending on who he talks to.
Saw people do it, now, I certainly never, not deliberately, and not even inadvertently. I just, some people will and some people won't. It's funny. It's like the cliche of somebody who goes to America for like their J1 or study visa, and they come back and they have this big American accent, or they go to Australia. Some people just do it, some people don't, but I never really kind of, it just wasn't, although, I do sometimes if I'm in an environment, particularly in the north, I suddenly find I get a northern twang, but no, not in the UK, it never happened. No. I think probably people, even sometimes subconsciously, just look for acceptance. People want to fit in. And, maybe they feel that, an Irish accent, they might become self-conscious of it. Maybe they're subconsciously conscious of it, if that makes any sense. And they change in order to fit in or to mold into the background. No, but I suppose nobody wants to be an outsider,
And to wrap things up, what does the future hold for Ireland as it becomes more multicultural with each generation?
In relation to the culture, I don't think that it will change. I don't think it will change. The only thing that will change is probably people, but not the culture. So like as we speak right now, it really depends on the generation of the people. Like for example, you got the young ones like that are growing up, and then you can tell a big difference between 20 to 30 years ago till now, and then between like the way the people act, the way the people speak. But in relation to culture, it still sticks. To any other country, it should still stick like to whatever it is. If it's Ireland, it's Ireland, okay? And then for the people, it really depends on how they perceive that in relation to their views. So, but in my opinion, as a Filipino living in Ireland, I count myself as Irish, but Filipino background. So, and yeah, that's literally it, And boom, drinks time.
So up next, I wanted to delve even further into a specific aspect of Irish culture. Coming from a theatre background, being a theatre student, and having a grandmother who's been in the theatre business most of her life, I knew that I needed to interview her. Not a lot was taught in my school about what existed for entertainment pre-RTE, so I wanted to investigate her life growing up as the daughter of Kitty and Frank O'Donovan. And they were two big names in the Irish theatre landscape for quite some time. They worked in fit-ups. This was a style of touring theatre that came to towns and villages to present a variety show. And I decided to contrast that with what the theatre landscape is today. Here's her story.
I'm Maureen O'Donovan, and I'm living now in Wicklow Town. Used to live in South Dublin, but like to be beside the sea. I suppose born in the proverbial trunk. Not literally, of course, but both my parents were in the theatre. As a matter of fact, on my mother's side, the theatre goes back to, I think, 4, 5, maybe generations. So, yeah, there wasn't much choice, I suppose. But I think they tried to make me do all kinds of other things, but I kept drifting back anyway, and yeah, settled in the theatre. Well, music and theatre, yeah. They were very much an influence. I didn't go to drama school, but I'm telling you, my mother, she let nothing slide. My father was probably a little more, willing to give me a try. It was years before she would even let me on the stage and let me open my mouth, and then started half a line, and yeah, usually Little French Maids or something in East Lynn, or Little Willie. Everybody played Little Willie. Every child that ever was on tour played Little Willie. Little Willie is, for any of those who might not be, you might not know about East Lynn, a melodrama. It's a melodrama in which this little child eventually dies. Dramatic scene because his mother has been sent away because she misbehaved, and she comes back then, and there's a very dramatic scene where she's little boy is dying. She's a tiny little thing, and mostly the children were too big anyway to be little tiny children, so you had to do a little baby voice, don't you know? And usually you were sort of folded up somehow in this very small bed. But yeah, I think that's something that's foisted upon every child who ever was on tour when East Lynn was played. The fit-ups were wonderful. Very few people know about them nowadays, but or I suppose are even interested. But no, they were great. They were great days. We were young, of course, which all made it all seem very easy. Maybe for older people it mightn't have been so easy because you, I won't say you lived out of a suitcase, but you were usually a week in each town. They were called fit-ups because, of course, you brought, like a snail, everything with you. Your house on your back. You brought everything that was required to build, furnish a stage anyway. Yeah, so you had all your costumes, generally referred to then as props. Now props refer to something else, just property altogether, stage equipment and articles used on the stage. But a change of mostly anyway. You had a change of program every night, which we all took in our stride then. I think now it might be considered a little bit. They were being pushed, maybe, but you did a different play, or if it was a variety show, a whole set of different acts. And all done by the same people, obviously, because there were probably about there were some shows who had as little as maybe half a dozen people in the cast. I was involved more or less up to the time that I married, which was in 57. And well, after that, I didn't do very much because obviously with new husband you didn't want to be brushing off, and he wasn't in the business, so in show business that is, and so it was more a settled life, if you know what I mean. And then of course children arrived one by one, delighted to receive each and every one, and but that sort of domesticity went on, I suppose, by the time I had 5 offspring. So by the time they were all reared, I suppose, and ready to go, and I felt that I could get out again and do a bit of work. I did try to have both going and try and do things which didn't involve me traveling too much and that. I found that I wasn't concentrating fully on either job, which wasn't a good idea. So I decided to do things that wouldn't bring me away from home, if possible, and things that were, the hours weren't too ridiculous. But gradually that fizzled out too, because I got more busy, obviously, as family grew, and it must have been the bones of 30 years. Mind you, I did do a bit of dance band work in between. Yeah, that was very pleasant indeed. I enjoyed that enormously. Just a feeling I wanted to get back, really. Which meant I had to go and reinstate myself with equity, and I was a bit long in the tooth for the dance band business at that stage, but I thought I get back into equity anyway and see what's going on. And I'd kept a bit of an eye on what was going on, but didn't partake particularly. Otherwise occupied. So yes, it was a matter of getting to know what was going on, film work, gradually get little bits and pieces, and very lucrative television ads, of course. You hope to get them. They're hard enough. They're even more difficult now, I think, to actually land. But because they're easy too. And the film work is, as long as you're looked after, that's nice. You didn't get work so easily, shall we say. You really had to chase it up. You wouldn't have had to do that, the time back in the 50s. You just, coming back, I was away and came back and just put a little notice in the stage column in the Independent. It's just a tiny little stage column where people advertised, because that's more or less how work was made. That it was made public. People wanted people, and that people looking for work could just put a little ad in there. But I just said I was free for a summer season, seaside, and I think I got answers from everybody in all the companies in the country, which was lovely, of course. Delighted with myself. That's good. But there'll be so many people now. First of all, people know who you are, even. There are so many people looking for the available work that it is more difficult. Yeah, they used to say, well, you do half a dozen really auditions before you'd land one. Then it was 9. Then suddenly it was 15. And God knows what it is now. But yes, everybody is, there's so many people. It is, it's more competitive now, that's just that. Yeah.
So there we go. In my opinion, Irishness is defined by our cultural upbringing. Going to pubs, the way we speak, the way we walk, not necessarily by the colour of our skin or where our parents were born. And our theatre culture is a massive part of that. The scripts we consume, the voices we hear on TV, it builds us into who we are, our identities. So, Peter, thank you very much for coming here today to watch my presentation. And now I'll log back into Zoom to take any questions. Thank you very much.